Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make a bunch of cute cards using a die that I found on clearance at the big box craft store the other day. It's a Terrarium die by Sizzix. I'm using stamps from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com, and you can see I'm using Holiday Garden, Gingerbread Wreath, Autumn Elegance, Party Time, Cactus Terrarium, and Build-A-Bear Prickly Pear Cactus. Build-A-Bear? Build a cactus. Build a prickly pear cactus. Oh my goodness. So when I saw this set of dies, I thought, this would be ideal. I was thinking with the succulent stamps that I designed for Rubber Stamp Tapestry, but they were a little bit big. But then when I started going through my stash of peg stamps, I realized, wow, there are so many things that I could stamp in this terrarium. So I did my die cutting first, which usually I don't do when I'm stamping, but I want to make sure I can make everything fit within the terrarium shape, and it worked out really well. I actually had a scrap of watercolor paper sitting by my die cutter, so I just used that because I wasn't sure if I was going to want to use watercolors on these or just dye-based ink, so I figured that would give me a little versatility. I knew I wasn't going to use alcohol pens, so I decided to use up that scrap of watercolor paper. I'm using various shades of Memento dye-based ink in shades of green for this first one with the cactuses, and this was just ideal. There's a couple different cactus sets from Rubber Stamp Tapestry, so feel free to mix and match whatever you have to fill this guy up. You could also even put in, other smaller vines and stuff if you needed it for the bulk. And also, by double inking some of these like solid images like the prickly pear, instead of building a prickly pear, I just use the individual elements as like little bitty cactuses. By inking them in a couple shades of ink, you can get a nice volume, and it gives you that colored look. Now I'm using just some water-based markers to draw in some little flowers on some of the cactuses in like a kind of a corally pink color, because that makes the green seem a little bit more vibrant when you do that. And I'm using some also some watercolor markers just to fill in some of the line work cactuses, because some are solid and some are line work, and that will also make them all feel like they belong together as part of the same composition. And I'm spreading out some of the ink with a water brush because I did work on watercolor paper, so I knew that I'd be able to blend water-based markers, and that could be any brand you have really easily. And I'm using a really light blue here to add some color to the edge, and then I'm using my water brush again to kind of spread it in so it looks like when you have a glass terrarium how the outside is a little bit thicker than the inside, and it just gives you a more interesting look rather than just having it plain white back there, which you totally could, but I like that a little bit better. Now for the dirt under the plants, I'm just using a dark water-based marker, and then I'm going to blend it out with a slightly lighter water-based marker. Like I mentioned, when you're using watercolor paper, or it could be Bristol, anything that's meant for watercolor or wet media like that, it's going to let you move that ink a little bit more, so you're going to have better success than just working on cardstock. And I do find that actually, if you do only have cardstock, the cheaper cardstock like from Sam's Club or Walmart works better than like the expensive Nina when you're working with water-based mediums, because Nina is meant for like an alcohol-based pen. And there you can see how it's going to go together. But I'm going to get all my stamping for all of these different cards done first, and then assemble everything later. So something I love, obviously if you follow my channel, you know I love sweets. I don't love to eat sweets. I have a hard time finding ones that I can eat being vegan, but I love the colors of confections basically. So I decided to choose some nice, kind of sprinkle colors and go ahead and color these cupcakes. I was kind of thinking of a cupcake stand when I stamped these in there, and I just thought it'd be a really fun, cheerful birthday card. If you had a donut stamp, it would also be really cute to have a bunch of donuts in there. Anything that you would put in like a glass dome. Now these markers here that I've switched over to are the new Color It markers, and I like them because they're refillable, but also the colors are very subtle, so like I didn't even have to blend that out with water. It was subtle enough that I could just use it as is. Now the big cake that's in the Party Time peg stamp set is pretty much great on its own to fill that area, but I thought it'd be fun to put a little banner across in the background just to give it that kind of party flair. So just kind of experiment. It doesn't have to necessarily be something you normally see inside of a dome like terrarium or bell jar. You can totally just have fun with this theme, and like I said, if you have a die set that you can use with a bunch of the supplies you already have, it's nice because it makes what you have more versatile. And I'm always always thinking about that when I am buying something new to use in my craft room. I say, okay, is this going to make what I already have obsolete, or is it going to make what I already have more useful? If it's just going to replace something I already have, I try to avoid. I have a hard time with markers and watercolors though. I have a lot of duplications there because I just want to try the different brands. But like with stamps and dies, I just try to make sure that I'm getting something that's going to make what I already have a little bit more useful. I think I overdid this poinsettia one a little bit. I stamped the outline poinsettia in a darker color, and then I colored it with a lighter red ink, and then I just filled in with a little bit of green, and then added some of the light blue for the bell jar. It's probably a little chaotic, but I think on the card it's all right because I kept the cards really clean and simple. The other thing I was thinking of is gingerbread, right? Because I love to have a few Christmas cards ready to go. So I thought I'm just going to stamp a bunch of gingerbread men in different shades of brown, maybe accent a little bit with my markers. And honestly, if you need to do little round dots, a traditional bullet tip marker is going to work better than a brush pen. But I didn't realize that when I was doing it, so it's a little sloppy. But still, when you need those Christmas cards to like tuck a little gift card in or something, you know, it's handy to have. Even if it's not perfect, that's fine. It's handmade. I think people expect to see a little wonky line here or there. And of course, I did some pumpkins because I thought it'd be fun for a Halloween or a fall card to send out. I like to send cards for things that aren't expected just because I think they're remembered more, and they also brighten someone's day. So there's a little fall card. So the next thing I did was I glued all of my stamped domes within the lower layer, which I just die cut out of a scrap of silver because I thought that would kind of look reflective, kind of like glass. Because typically, I think what you're supposed to do with this die set is to cut the dome part out of acetate and then glue it over whatever you've stamped or die cut for the inside of your terrarium. But that wasn't going to work out that well for me. I find that it makes things too shiny and it's hard to see all your beautiful stamping work. I cut some inexpensive doilies in half and simply glued them onto a 4x4 inch square. The cards I'm making are made out of heavyweight craft cardstock, and the card size is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, so you can get 2 square cards from each sheet of cardstock. And I'm using the heavyweight craft from Joann's big box store, and I'm not sure if they sell that online. They probably do, but I found it in the real store, and I was very surprised because I haven't seen heavyweight craft anywhere. So if you have another resource for that, just let me know. But that's a nice sturdy cardstock. I really like it. And I'm just assembling the terrarium right on the card because the bottom part that I cut out of a scrap of gold will set underneath it. It doesn't overlap. So that's nice. That was a leftover happy birthday die cut that I had from another project. So I decided to just save it. If I have extra happy birthdays or extra banners, I just save them in a little dish next to my die cutter because I always need them for something. And then just for a little subtle accent, I'm going to set some little eyelets in the corners using my crocodile punch. And that's really handy. I have both the Big Bite, the long reach one, and the handheld one. And I have to say, I use the handheld one about 90% of the time. I rarely ever use the long one. So if you're trying to decide between two, I like it so much better than a traditional eyelet setter because it's quiet and it's so quick and easy to use. But I will say that I use the handheld smaller one, cheaper one, way more than the long reach one. And that's basically the same process for making all of these cards here. I just switched up the paper to match whatever theme I had. Instead of using a stamp tag here, I found this metal tag that I think I bought it at like the Dollar Tree maybe 10 or more years ago when the metal charms were really popular. And I'm just using some tacky glue to stick down that grosgrain ribbon. Tacky glue is nice because it's not thin and it won't seep through the ribbon. I could probably have done with a strip of the double-sided adhesive as well, but that worked really well. And after it dried, you did not see any darkness from where the glue was. So I know you can see it a little bit in that picture, but it turned out fine. And that's a little squirrel brad from Eyelet Outlet that I found at the stamp show this year or last year. I can't remember. But I thought it'd be really nice with a fall themed card. And then I used a few patterned buttons that came from last year's AC Moore collection. And I am using more of those banners with happy birthday stamped on it for the other birthday ones. I love to have the little birthday cards on hand, and those are a great size for tucking in a gift card. So it's kind of neat to have a square card. They're 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, so you can also mail them in a regular A2 envelope, so you don't have to pay extra postage. So if you've been not doing square cards because you're worried about trying to find envelopes or paying extra postage, pop that right in a regular A2 card, and you're going to mail it for a regular postage stamp stamp size. So that will work out for you. And there you can see all the finished cards. They were so much fun to make, and I hope you give it a try. I'll link all these supplies below. Make sure you check out our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry, at pegstamps.com to find these little stamps I used, which will be linked up. And thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Until next time, happy crafting!